You're listening to the Build Highlands Back podcast with Jonathan Raymond.
Welcome back to the Build Highlands Back podcast, where we share stories of second chances, transformation, and the communities we serve. I'm Jonathan Raymond, Executive Director of Highlands Community Charter and Technical Schools. At Highlands, our mission is simple. We serve adults aged 22 years and older who were not well served by traditional K-12 schools. Our students are immigrants, refugees, working parents, and returning citizens. These are people who want and deserve another chance at education and opportunity. And today, I'm honored to be joined by a true community leader, Kathy Chao Rothberg. Kathy is the CEO of the Lao Family Community Development Corporation, an organization that has been a lifeline for refugees, immigrants, and families here in Sacramento. Kathy's work is rooted in empowering people, building opportunity, and making sure that every family has the chance to thrive and become part of their new community. Kathy, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to have you on set today.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm really pleased to be here as well. What a beautiful studio.
Yeah, we're honored to have you on the show. And you've been serving immigrants and refugees for a long time. What makes this population so unique?
That's such a great question. So Lao Family has been, in fact, we just celebrated our 45th anniversary. And, we started because there was a group of us, family and friends, who were dislocated. And we were refugees because of the war in Vietnam that escalated to Laos. And then when the U.S. pulled out of Vietnam, they also pulled out of Laos. So it created this surge of refugees that came to America. So the root of Lao Family started as an organization that was built by refugees to originally serve refugees. And we understand what refugees have to deal with when they first come to America. So 45 years later now to today, and the refugees that we're serving now, they're a different group. It's from a different continent. It may not be Laos or Vietnam or Cambodia, but now it's Ukraine, and it's Afghanistan. It's Syria, and possibly even South Africa now for this community in Sacramento.
Wow. And even though the communities and their country of origin is different, they all face barriers. Could you share what are some of those barriers that an immigrant and a refugee faces then and as well as today?
Well, it's never changed. One of the first things that they encounter is, of course, learning the language. Afrikaners probably speak English, many of them. But if we're talking about other refugees from other parts of the world, language, so ESL, is really critical. Many of them, they have never held a pen before. They've never had any formal education. I think it seems so basic that we think that, learning English, but it's more than that. Without truly understanding English, it's hard to truly understand the culture. Culture of not only as a resident, but the culture of the workplace. We need English so that we could actually improve in our career and be able to earn a living that actually can support parents. And that's the reason why we love Highlands. California had this terrible situation of a budget crisis in 2014. And the legislatures had to make a decision. Do they support K-12 education or adult? Maybe it didn't have to be either or. But what they did was they decimated the education for adults by 90%. And that's really when we met Highlands, was in the mid-2000, like 15, 16, 17. And Highland created a field of void, where the school districts couldn't support the education of the families that we were serving. And it's not just refugees or immigrants. Right. But it's actually Americans who are born here, who are returning citizens, who are single moms and dads. For whatever reason, they didn't finish school. And so that's the uniqueness about Highlands is that, number one, it offers very like low level 0 or 1 for people who have never studied English before, who don't know a word of English. Like including myself when I came to America at the age of 7, didn't speak a word of English. But now, look at this organization now that has served 500,000 people, just like Highland on an annual basis at its peak was serving 13,000 people across, the region. So the uniqueness is it serves Highland, just like Lao Family, serves a very diverse population.
Yeah. Kathy, and from your perspective, are there other organizations or regions or other organizations in this region that come close to doing what Highlands does?
Well, there are many great organizations in this community, and we work with many of them. So, I think the short answer would be no. And I say this because we work, within the resettlement community, that's refugee resettlement. There's 5 of us, right? So there's Lao Family, there's Opening Door, there's World Relief, there's Sacramento Food Bank, and then there's IRC. The 3 of us serve refugees, and many of us try to provide ESL ourselves, hiring teachers that in the past, maybe they just had adult license, not necessarily K-12 license, because, you don't need K-12 back in the days to teach adults who are 22 years and older. So we work with the adult school themselves, whether it's Elk Grove Adult School or it's San Juan Unified School District Adult School or Sacramento Adult School. But the offering that those partners offer are different. And they have a particular curriculum, they have a particular way that they have to do it, and it takes longer to go through the system. So what we like about working with Highlands is number one, is that it's located in different neighborhoods to meet the transportation barrier and the child care, the financial barriers of the families. That you have different levels. One's English is better, then you can go into the regular high school diploma program. But Highlands also offers career technical education training programs. And that's really critical so that a student who's learning English could also co-enroll in the CTE training program. And then the fact that you guys are sensitive, to the needs of the families who are new to this country, who have very low income, they have childcare challenges. So the fact that you had 0 to 5, where the 2-year-olds, to 5-year-olds can be in class at the same time they're learning English that the parents are learning. Remember that the parents are the first teachers to the children. You know that more than anybody. But you also know that these families are struggling with even clothing to go to school, clothing for their children, and to go for a job interview. So Highland also offers that. And then you even have some transportation support, and that's really critical. And the laundry. So you're holistic in your offering, and I think that's a big distinction. And then offering different locations and different hours.
Right. And I think the partnerships have been absolutely key to us. Partnerships like ours, being with Lao Family and some of the other organizations that you had mentioned.
The Build Highlands Back podcast with Jonathan Raymond.
Kathy, you know that we're making a lot of changes right now.
Yes.
We're doing everything we can to ensure we are operating under state compliance. But it's a system that was built for the traditional K-12 children, not serving adults. In your perspective, is this working, and is it the right way to be educating adults in the state of California?
Wow, that's a really good question. I was just recently at a conference in Monterey, and it's an annual conference. It's called Meeting of the Minds, and it's really about workforce and what's happening with workforce in California, where the providers, both government and nonprofits, come together. And there were many organizations, or not many, but I would say like a handful of organizations that provide some sort of ESL or high school diploma, in the room. So I think the arena, the players that offer ESL or high school diploma for adults who are 22 years and older is very limited. There are many programs that offer GEDs or high school diploma for 22-year-olds and under. You know, the emphasis, I think there's a lot of them for 18 to 21-year-olds. But I believe that in California, with our unemployment being so high for certain populations like returning citizens and immigrants and refugees, our standard of the way we're providing education for this population, which is the population that really needs the diplomas and the ESL, it doesn't really meet their need. We think that if we built it already and they're going to come, versus this is where they're at. These are the students. This is the barriers that they have. And let's build our program where we do have standards. We do have procedures. We do have quality. We do have fiscal management. We do have quality teachers. But let's make sure that we can accommodate their needs so then they could be successful.
Right. I was out at our College Oak campus earlier this week at the Salam Center, and I was talking to a student. Actually, the student was talking through another student because they're a relatively new arrival from Afghanistan. He doesn't speak any English. He is a level 0. And yet here he is in a high school class because of our state compliance, where he's having to try to take history and English and biology, and he's a level 0. He couldn't even fill out the assessment of where somebody is with their English language support. So these are the very challenges that I think you are speaking about. Kathy, you have a policy background, having been a formerly elected official. From a policy perspective, what is it going to take to begin to address the needs of adult learners here in California? How might we go about approaching this?
Wow, it's such a complex question and issue, because when you think about school districts, right? I remember as a mayor of my city, in the city of San Pablo in Contra Costa County, we were trying to work hand in hand with the West County School District, right? The school district focuses on K-12 education. And I think that adult education, it was a challenge, like in terms of funding for them and also the particular school that you would set aside. So there might have been only 2 or 3 locations in the whole West County area to meet the needs of adult education. But I think that from a policy standpoint, if we're trying to educate adults, but we're putting them into K-12 and it's those standards, it doesn't seem to make sense to me. Because adult learners could be single adults, or they can be a parent, or they might even be a grandparent. Mm-hmm. So they have to work during the daytime. And a lot of the education in the let's say community college district or even the adult school district, it's from 9 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning until maybe 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, if you need to feed your family and you need to eat, you need to pay rent, you have to put food on the table, you might be working at a low wage job during the daytime. And you might need to take classes in the evening, or the opposite. You need classes in the morning so that you can actually go to school, work in the evening. So I think that's the difficulty, because in a typical K-12 campus, you have different subjects. And they might take attendance in each class. But that child, lives in a household. They don't have to pay for rent. If they need to miss school because they're sick or they have a doctor's appointment, it's an excuse. For adult learners, we have to keep in mind that they'll come into the class, but what if 3 hours later they get a phone call that their child is sick, or they have to go and meet with the welfare department because of their benefits? They have to demonstrate that they're going to school or they're looking for a job. So I think we really have the standard that we have to meet for adults who are 22 years and older, it doesn't make any sense that it's the same exact standards that you have to meet for K-12. Highlands is very unique. And so I think lawmakers, policymakers have to keep that in mind, that there isn't a one size that fits all, especially for a group like Highlands.
Right. I was talking recently with our friends from the Field School. Field School operates in the Valley and other locations around California. And what they have come to learn, because they serve a very similar population of adults, largely immigrant, agriculture-based because of their location. But they've determined that that their adults, on average, can be in class 3 to 4 hours a day maximum. So they have been able to utilize and to look at the education code, and they use, for instance, because they know, as you said, many of them are supporting their families. They have to work. So they can use work experience to work up to 2 classes a day and receive credit. And I know about that because here in Sacramento, we have a school called the Met, which is a big picture school, and it's based on students having internships and those real world work experiences that are also important to give students that experience that they need to be successful beyond their K-12 days. So they have figured out how to utilize that to enable their students to get the supports that they need, to get the experiences, to help them support their families, yet also earn their high school diploma. So I think it takes within the system ways to be creative, but I think to your earlier point, we've got to get our policymakers to understand that if they're serious about providing education and workforce opportunities to newly arrived Californians who have chosen or are making California their home, that it has to be a different system.
We work with a lot of education providers, and every provider has their requirements. And one of the things that strikes me all the time when we're working with organizations is that when you have an excellent program, a really good program, a good curriculum, good teachers, what you think are nice classrooms, but if you're too strict, with the requirement of you only offer it during this time, and this is the only location that you offer it, and this is the only standard. What happens is that you have this wonderful program, but nobody comes. As an example, we just were offering a CNA training program. There was this particular funding that was at the state. That funding was there for 10 years. Nobody applied for it because the risk of the program that you, as a provider, you don't get reimbursed until the very end when everyone has completed the program, passed their license, working in the nonprofit sector, and then they show an increase in wage before you get reimbursed. That's too much risk for many nonprofits to do. But in regards to, education for adults, things have changed. Even during COVID, there was a lot of innovation during this period. And I think the Highland was an example of an innovator. We talk about adults needing education, but everybody has a phone. So we think, right? We think everybody has a smartphone. But just because you have a smartphone doesn't mean that you know how to fill out forms and do surveys and actually study. And we talk about digital divide. And maybe people might have a TV, they might have cable, they might have internet for the cable, but they might not have a laptop or a desktop that actually works so they can actually study. And so I bring that up because I think that's one of the unique things about Highlands is that you're able to support the student to reduce their barrier from whether it's giving them a phone that they can use to communicate to the teacher. You're giving them a Chromebook or a laptop so they can actually use it to study at home and to connect. They've been in the class and they've studied it, but then they might need to repeat because it's a lot of it is you need second, third, fourth opportunities to review the material again. And people can study in different ways. It could be in a coffee shop sometimes.
Right.
But a lot of the refugees and the families that we serve, it's not like they have a spare bedroom that they can actually study in. So I think having a seat base, and one of the things that Highland offered that was really important is that a lot of the students that Highland serve, that we co-case manage, they didn't have a place to study at home. So the fact that they can go to Highlands and the classroom was open, the teachers were there, they could use the laptop or the phone, you're meeting and removing their barriers.
Right.
So they can actually enter the program and they can actually graduate.
Yeah, and I think that's the operative word. They can graduate. We have to figure it out. I think we have to do, and part of our effort in building Highlands back is figuring out and being creative within the boundaries, within the compliance framework that we've been told to operate now. How do we enable our students to be successful and to graduate? You just mentioned the ability to be digitally literate, really important. And we could provide space, our classrooms, we can provide a device, a computer and a laptop, and we could actually, through a study hall format, create a course, give them access to an online curriculum to work on their literacy, their learning, their reading skills, while also using their digital literacy skills and providing them a safe, quiet space in which to work, to learn, to be with other students, and to get support from the teachers. That was something else that we learned from the field schools.
You're listening to the Build Highlands Back podcast with Jonathan Raymond.
If we're going to make some changes, Kathy, where do we start and how do we start?
Wow, I mean that's a really good question. I think that since I feel that from my perspective, as a partner, somebody that serves over 10,000, we serve 10,000 people or so in this region. Lao Family serves about 31,000 people a year, within the 4 regions that we're in, right? Sacramento, Yolo, Alameda County, and Contra Costa County. So we work with a lot of different government and policymakers in different areas of Northern California. So I think that personally, if I think about your situation, with ESL, I mean, obviously Twin Rivers is your issuer. And so I think Twin Rivers, California Department of Education, I think the body that oversees licensing, I think our local workforce development, our local county office of ed, I mean, the assembly, the Senate, the governor, everybody needs to work together. By comparison, here's a thought. For the last 2 decades, Lao Family has been a partner to the Department of Commerce. Every year, we are a Q&A center to do the census, our federal census. We're one of the few, probably the only organization, maybe in the whole nation, that the Department of Commerce actually allows for group census, like filling out the surveys. And we appealed to them because we said, listen, we're talking about people who have never held a pen before. You think that it's 10 questions is easy to answer? Even, I'm educated here in the United States, went to grad school, and those questions is more than 10 minutes to answer. So if you expect a refugee person or an immigrant person who doesn't even speak English to fill out the census, and they have to do it by themselves, right, there's no way. So if the Department of Commerce can make accommodations for refugees and people who have never held pens to do group survey output, why can't California make a change to make sure that adult learners, right, with all of these complicated rules, I would think that California should be able to make those accommodations so that we can really support job seekers and our citizens and our community members. How can our families feed themselves and their family members if we don't make the education, comfortable, accessible, for those who need it the most.
Right. And if in order to feed yourself, you need to have a sustainable workforce opportunity to earn a living wage, those jobs are central and key to the economic success of the greater Sacramento area. And if, as Sacramento goes, so does the rest of the state of California, given all of the unique industries here at the top of the valley, from agriculture to biotech, healthcare, manufacturing, hospitality, restaurants. I think we are representative of California, and California is representative of this kind of a country. I think what you really spoke to, Kathy, is we've got to educate. If we can educate the Department of Commerce so they can, in essence, walk in the shoes of those that we are trying to serve, then there's no reason why California state policymakers can't come out, have conversations, meet our students, come into our classrooms, see the challenges that our teachers and our students are facing, and look at the wait lists for our programs. I think it takes sometimes not throwing your hands up and saying, oh my gosh, the problem is so big. But the fact is that we can be unique, we can be nimble, we can be flexible, and we can use the resources and the partnerships like the Lao families in our communities who have been serving the unique needs of the population for not just years, but for decades.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, as I reflect about, the job training programs and the employers that we're trying to meet in Sacramento region, for example, it's the logistics, right? It's manufacturing, it's drivers, it's distribution, it's our healthcare. We're meeting the needs of clinics, of hospitals, of organizations that serve the homeless, people with behavioral health, mental health services. We're meeting the needs of grocery, industry here. The grocery industry, the aerospace industry, the logistics industry. And I'll just say, for example, we started in a collaboration of a shipping industry training. The shipping industry of not only commuter ferries and recreational ferries, but it's also commercial vehicle vessels as well as military ships. Our partnership, there's a training facility on Mare Island. And let me just say that there's been 3 cohorts now. And the last cohort, the graduation was just a couple of months ago in Mare Island. And there were 24 people in the cohort. 12 of those came from Lao family. And if not for the ESL, they were Burmese, individuals that got hired by base shipping. But a critical part of our offering with our partnership with Highlands is the ESL. It was the ESL, and these were for young adults, 21 to 28 years old. Young adults who they weren't in school, they didn't have a job, their English was not good. Highlands helped to improve their English. We were able to get them into job readiness. They entered the shipping training program with a big collaboration of partners. And then they were able to get their job offers, with base shipping. So there were 12 people out of 24 who came from us. And for the Burmese individuals, the ESL was critical. And then we have Spanish speaking individuals. The English was also critical. So, and then we have our returning citizens. So the students or the trainees that we brought in were very diverse, but education is really critical for them to succeed. And I'll just wrap up by saying that because of the partnership with Highlands, over the decades that we've been working, nearly 1 decade of working with our family and Highlands. We were looking at our statistics just from 2017 to now. Working with Highland, we were able to train through ESL and high school diplomas, CTE training. We served, there were 3,125 refugees from Afghanistan and Syria and etc. But there were 500 Ukrainian also students and participants. So that's just the statistics that's already 3,600 people just through partnering with us that we're able to move to a better place here in the Sacramento region.
Right. I'd love to leave that be the last word, but I want to build off of that, Kathy, because not only are we educating such a diverse population of new arrivers in California, working parents and others who the traditional K-12 system hasn't served well, or even those that have, returned from a different life where they made some mistakes and they are all trying to build their life back better. Yeah. But I think we do something else. Because of the diversity and the mix within our classrooms, I want to share a story that one of our teachers shared. She said at the beginning of the school year, she had a student who was from Russia and a student from Ukraine. They were in the same classroom, but they didn't interact. They didn't have any conversations. They wouldn't even speak or greet each other. And one day, as she was getting ready to go for a lunch break, she noticed the two students were speaking in a language that she didn't understand. And when she came back, they were standing, they were smiling, and they shook hands. And off they went. And I think what she shared with me is that we do something else, we help to create the conditions where we can not only educate our students and we can give them the opportunities and the tools to achieve their dreams, but, we're doing something for humanity. We bring people together, and people with great differences, often long-time differences. And in this country, I think one of the things that makes the United States unique, and certainly something that we have to hold on to and to cherish, is that the mix of peoples that come to this country, that live in this country, we can do something to bring communities together. And when we bring communities together, we're bringing humanity together.
It's true. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, when I think about all the students that we have served together, Highlands and Lao Family together for the last nearly a decade, when you think about Sacramento and you think about the shopping centers, I mean, I didn't even tell Ethan Conrad this, but a lot of Ethan Conrad's, businesses in his shopping centers, those are Afghani businesses that we have helped. With English, improvement, not only have they been able to take care of themselves, but now they have small businesses, in the shopping centers. And all of, really Rich Desmond's district in this Arden Arcade area, it's thriving because of the refugee and immigrant community. All of these businesses with bakeries, with grocery stores, with restaurants, with used car dealerships, a lot of the former, Ukrainian and Russian, families, they're opening, plumbing businesses, they're electricians, they are basically computer scientists, they're there's beauticians, nail salons, the immigrants, the refugees, the Hmong families, maybe the Lao families, who Vietnamese or or Cambodian. Now they have grocery stores, they have restaurants, they have all kinds of businesses. So truly, the lifting of this community. I mean, when they enter the program at Lao Family. And then they had zero income, really. They had zero income. They had a welfare income that was maybe $900 a month for a family of 4 times 12 months. We can do the math. They were really below the federal poverty line. But as they exited the program with jobs, with improved English, with diplomas, and with CTEs, now their exits, their annual income is $30,000 to $97,000 salaries. So they're able to care for their family, and that's only for one earner. Okay, there's another earner in the family. So they're paying taxes. They can move on to the community colleges, transfer to the CSU or the UC system. They're professionals or paraprofessionals, they're entering, working at the county, they're working at the school districts, they're working at the nonprofit social service, the human service, they're entering small businesses. So the lifting of the whole community, right. Not only Sacramento, but the whole state of California. Look, we have a huge $12 billion deficit right now coming up in California. the more families that we can live with more education and more skills
and jobs,
then we can lift them out of the dependence, on our system, and they can build a life of independence and being a model for their children and their community members.
Right. And to contribute to the economic growth and well-being and sustainability of our community. Kathy, it's been great to have you on our show today. On our Build Highlands Back podcast. It's been wonderful to get a chance to have you share some of your stories as a way to show your leadership and your service to this greater Sacramento community, as well as the community that you have grown up in and that you have loved and served in other capacities. It's really remarkable, and I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for your leadership, and particularly, selfishly, thank you for your partnership and for standing with Highlands through all of the challenges. But with challenges, as you know, comes great opportunity. And I think in many ways, for both Lau family and for Highlands, the best is yet to come. So I wanted to just, thank you and to say, thank you for sticking with us.
Well, absolutely. Hey, through thick and thin, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And it's been a pleasure to partner with Highlands, and we're going to continue to work with you. All of us are always growing. None of us are perfect. We're always trying to continuously improve ourselves and our organization. And Highland has done a great job. There's some little tweaks that you got to tweak, and I know that you're committed to it. I trust you, and I trust the Highland board, and I trust the Highland staff. I've seen what you guys have done, and you can crawl out of this, and you're going to be even stronger, and we're going to be here. There's lots of us who are here to support you, and we will continue to support you because great communities require great organizations that require great leaders and require just great partnership.
Amen on that one, Kathy. Amen. So there we have it, Highlands. It's been a great show today with Kathy Chao Rothberg, who is the CEO of Lau Family Development Corporation. Today we've been able to lift up her story on how an organization serves a tremendous community. This is Jonathan Raymond, your host of Build Highlands Back. And I'm looking forward to seeing you at our very next podcast show. And until then, take good care.
For more information on the exciting things happening at Highlands, visit buildhighlandsback.org and follow us on social media platforms at HCCTS.